This episode is brought to you by Merrill. Join one of the most iconic names in wealth management, Merrill. You'll be part of a dynamic team of advisors and specialists working hard every day to grow their clients' wealth. And with the support of best-in-class research, advanced digital tools, and the resources of a global institution, it's truly an opportunity you can be bullish about. Learn more at careers.bankofamerica.com. Copyright 2024, Bank of America Corporation.
This is Optimal Finance Daily. Make a wish list of financial goals by J.D. Roth of GetRichSlowly.org. And I'm your host and personal finance enthusiast, Diana Merriam. Now let's get right to it and continue optimizing your life. Make a wish list of financial goals by J.D. Roth of GetRichSlowly.org. Quote, "If one moves confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours." Henry David Thoreau. What would you do if money were not a concern? Would you quit your job? Would you travel? Would you live in another state, another country? Would you write? Would you garden? Would you devote your life to charity? Would you race cars? Would you enter politics? Many people make poor financial decisions because they don't have long-term personal goals. If you don't understand that buying a new cell phone or playing a game of poker takes money from a larger goal, a new home, a new car, a vacation to Europe, then there's no incentive not to use the money for whatever seems fun at the moment. Setting goals is easy. Grab a piece of paper and a pencil, make 4 columns and label them long-term, intermediate, short-term, and immediate, respectively. Long-term goals. Imagine that money isn't an issue. Where do you see yourself in 10 or 20 years? Where are you living? What are you doing? If you could do anything in the world full-time, what would it be? Consider these questions for 5 minutes. Let your mind wander. Let your imagination pull you where it will. Do you see yourself as a writer? Are you a pilot? Do you have a cabin in the hills? When you find yourself considering something that seems like an extension of yourself, something you truly want to do, write it in the long-term column. When I do this exercise, I always have the same vision. I'm a writer, sitting at home in front of a big oak desk. I'm making my living by writing. That's my long-term goal, to be able to stay at home and write. But how can I afford to do so? Intermediate goals. After you've developed a couple long-term goals, ask yourself, what would it take for me to reach them? Would you have to quit your job? Would your family have to move? Would you need to go back to school? Would you need to save a sum of money? In order for me to write full-time, several things have to happen. First, I need to hone my craft. I need to practice. I also need to become better educated. I might do this through reading or by taking classes on evenings or weekends. Ultimately, if I want to be a writer, I'll need to quit my current job. But to do so, I need to have saved a nest egg that can support me as I make the transition to writing full-time. Look at your long-term goals. What steps do you need to take in order to reach them? What do you need to make happen in the next 3 to 5 years? Jot these actions in the intermediate goals column. Short-term goals. Now that you've established some long-term goals and have some idea of what intermediate steps are necessary to reach them, spend some time considering what you can do in the next year to start the journey toward them. If your long-term goal is to be running a successful dune buggy business in 10 years, what steps do you first need to take? These first steps are your short-term goals. Though you set your long-term goals by ignoring money, money is key to establishing short-term goals. Intermediate and long-term goals are most easily achieved if a solid financial foundation is set early. If your long-term goal is to live in another country, your short-term goals will likely involve eliminating debt, building equity in your current home, and investing for growth. In order to pursue my goal to become a writer, I need to eliminate all debt, make investing a habit, strengthen my emergency fund, and save enough to be able to quit my job and go back to school. Immediate goals. The final question to ask is, what can I do now in order to help me achieve my long-term goals? This may be the most difficult question to answer. How can anything you do today possibly affect your long-term goals? And yet the truth is, everything you do today affects your pursuit of these goals. Every time I choose to buy comic books instead of putting the money towards my home equity loan, I'm tactically agreeing to put off my long-term goal just a little longer. Every time I go out to a fancy dinner, I'm adding an extra day or 2 or 3 to the time it will take to achieve my dreams. I'm not saying that you should forego all pleasure now in order to obtain future rewards. But as Dave Ramsey is fond of saying, if you will live like no one else, later you can live like no one else. The best way to make sense of short-term personal finance decisions is to have a clear long-term objective. If all you want to do is hang around town, work 9 to 5, and hang out with your buddies, and there's nothing wrong with this goal, then you probably don't need to change much. But if your dreams are bigger, then you need to align your spending with your goals. You just listened to the post titled, Make a Wish List of Financial Goals by J.D. Roth of GetRichSlowly.org, and I'll be right back with my commentary. Buy low, sell high. Buy low, sell high. It's a simple concept, but not necessarily an easy concept. Right now, high interest rates have crushed the real estate market. Prices are falling and properties are available at a discount, which means F.I.R.E believes now is the time to expand the F.I.R.E flagship fund's billion-dollar real estate portfolio. You can add the F.I.R.E flagship fund to your portfolio in minutes by visiting fundrise.com/OFD. That's FUNDRISE.com/OFD. Carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the F.I.R.E flagship fund before investing. This and other information can be found in the fund's prospectus at fundrise.com/OFD. This is a paid advertisement. This article made me think about an exercise I did while reading the book Design Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. It's called an Odyssey plan, and it's a great way to think creatively about what you want your life to look like, even before you start setting goals to move in a certain direction. You basically dream up 3 different 5-year plans. The first is continuing the trajectory you're on now. The second is what you would do if your current trajectory were no longer an option. And the third is a wild card. What would you do if you had all the money and resources you could want and no one was watching? I first did this exercise in 2018, and I spent quite a bit of time allowing my imagination to run wild. What's interesting in looking back at what I wrote down is that my life now is basically a combination of those 3 different scenarios. Goal setting can be tricky because sometimes we get so focused on a goal that we forget to appreciate where we are now, or we suck all the joy out of the journey. But if we can think about goals as setting a trajectory just to figure out what action to take right now or what to do next, they can be very helpful. My approach now is to move towards goals, but to let go of any expectation of the end result. That allows me to be flexible and pay attention to what unfolds along the way. And that should do it for today. Have a happy rest of your day, and I'll see you for the Thursday show tomorrow, where your optimal life awaits.